You found yourself on another edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United, and on today's episode, Darius, Garland, and Jarret Allen combined for 67 points as the Cleveland Cavaliers take down another top team, this time in the West. They take down the number 1 seed at the time, Minnesota Timberwolves, and they are back in the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. We got a lot to talk about on Let 'Em Know Kings United. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for the post-game reaction podcast of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and the Chicago Bulls. This is Let 'Em Know Kings United. Let 'em know, nation, we had a defensive battle that we got to talk about, and you already know what time it is. Welcome to another edition of Let 'em Know Kings United, your Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and Chicago Bulls post-game reaction podcast. I am your host, Carla Weisberg. Thank you so much for tuning into today's program. You can find Let 'em Know Kings United, which is 100% completely free and available on your favorite podcast app like Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all that good stuff. And you can find this show as well on my YouTube channel, NJHawk40. If you are watching this show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the like button on the video, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know the next time Let 'Em Know Kings United goes live, and leave a positive comment down below. Give the show a follow on those platforms if you can. Please turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode. Please rate, spread the word out to your friends, and give Let 'Em Know Kings United a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It is an amazing way to support the podcast, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning into today's program. In a battle of the 2 best defenses in the NBA coming in, another number 1 seed falls in Cleveland. This time, the number 1 seed in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves, fall to the Cleveland Cavaliers 113-104 in overtime, in a game where defense was the main thing last night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. I thought it was a physical game between 2 of the best defenses in the NBA. I mean, the matchups looked pretty even, right? The key matchup was Darius Garland for Cleveland versus Ant-Man Anthony Edwards for Minnesota. And I gotta give Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves a whole lot of credit, especially Naz Reid. That dude came up big time for the Minnesota Timberwolves, scoring over 30 points. Anthony Edwards was only limited to 19. That was not like him, coming off a monster performance the other night against the Indiana Pacers with the block of the year. I mean, my goodness, I am absolutely surprised that Anthony Edwards did not have a concussion after that block that he did. I mean, my God. But the short-handed, injury-thinned Cleveland Cavaliers are able to get this win, and they were behind 2 very key starters. Darius Garland and Jarret Allen combined for 67 points off the Minnesota Timberwolves last night. Darius Garland dropped 34. Jarret Allen had 33, which was a career high for him, as well as 18 big-time rebounds. Also, Jarret Allen made a career-best 15 free throws, including 14 at the half. He scored 10 points in overtime as the Cavs outscored the Minnesota Timberwolves 16-7 and won their 8th straight against a Western Conference team. Well, can somebody say that the Cleveland Cavaliers own the Western Conference? I think so. This was an impressive win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not only it was a tough and physical game, but it was a key game at home against a top West team in the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I think they are going to make the playoffs. But given the fact that the Minnesota Timberwolves have not been deep in the playoffs for a really, really long time, I do not expect the Minnesota Timberwolves to go deep in the playoffs. We're not not talking about a Western Conference final and an NBA final appearance here for Minnesota. I think that the Timberwolves can make it through at least the first round, and then they will be humbled by the Denvers, the Phoenixes, maybe the Mavericks of the world, maybe the Kings if they make the play-in. Who the heck knows? It was Cleveland's second win in 4 days against one of the league's elite teams. This past Tuesday, the Cavaliers came back from 22 points down in the final minutes to stun the Boston Celtics, who are clear-cut favorites to not only win the NBA title this year, but they are the number one team in the entire Eastern Conference. Jarret Allen said, it just boosts us for when everybody else gets back. Contrary to belief, we're better when everybody is in the lineup. This win was big time for Cleveland. This win was big time because, number one, you were at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on International Women's Day. Shout out to all the ladies that are listening to this show right now. And you are facing a number one team in the East. Could this be potentially a Eastern or an NBA Finals preview in a couple years? Maybe. We're going to have to see how it plays out. But the Cavaliers made it more impressive because they won without their starters, Evan Mobley, Max Strus, and Donovan Mitchell. Because of injuries, but had enough to cut down the Timberwolves, who could be excused for being tired following a 113-111 at Indiana on Thursday. But I'm not making any excuses for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, this loss was a game that in my opinion, the Minnesota Timberwolves should have had, but thank God they were playing on the second night of a back-to-back, because if Minnesota was the fresher team and the healthier team coming in, despite the fact with no Karl Anthony Towns for the Minnesota Timberwolves, then this would have been a whole different ballgame. This would have been taking a whole new dimension when it comes to this matchup. However, Cleveland was able to take advantage of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and despite the fact that they were shorthanded, the Cleveland Cavaliers still found a way to win this game. And I will give credit to J.B. Bickerstaff and the defense, because ultimately the defense of the Cleveland Cavaliers were better than the defense of the Minnesota Timberwolves because of this loss. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who beat the Miami Heat, who, by the way, I've been watching the Miami Heat recently. They've been struggling right now. I know they're sixth in the East, but I think they're exposed in a couple of areas. They don't know how to play a 2-3 zone, and they certainly do not know how to guard ball screens. But nevertheless, Minnesota head coach Chris Finch sat out after feeling ill just before tip-off. He met with reporters about 90 minutes before the game and didn't mention any issues. Acting head coach Micah Nori filled in, but the Cavaliers also got big help by Rudy Gobert, who was called for a technical foul with 27 seconds left. Because you know what he did? You know what this man did? Actually, Rudy Gobert, let me talk to you. You're nothing but a thug. Yeah, I said it. You're nothing but a thug. You're not good for the NBA, bro. You might as well go back to France or Australia, whatever the heck you came from, because players like you do not deserve to be in the NBA. And Minnesota, this is why you are not going to go deep into the playoffs, if I could be honest. With guys like Rudy Gobert on your team that don't know how to be mature and don't know how to keep their composure, Minnesota's not going to get that far. And what Rudy Gobert did to get a technical foul was do a money signal. I'm trying to do it, but this is audio version. I normally don't record my face on camera for those that are watching on YouTube. He did the money signal. Scott Foster, the crew chief, who is the worst referee I've ever seen in the NBA, did not see the gesture, but another official, ironically, on International Women's Day, a woman did, and you know what she said, Rudy Gobert? Get that out of here. Get that taunting out of here. You get a technical foul, you gone. And after being whistled for a disqualifying sixth foul, a push underneath on offense by official Scott Foster, Gobert rubbed his fingers together and made the money sign as if it was implying the referee was on the take. Foster did not see the gesture, but thankfully official Natalie Sango did and teed up Gobert, who finished with 17 rebounds in 37 minutes. Nori was clearly disappointed with Rudy Gobert, and honestly, if I was a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, and thank God I'm not, but if I was a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, I would have been going absolutely bonkers all over Rudy Gobert. In a bad way, too. In a bad way. Nori said about Rudy Gobert's technical foul, and I quote, "A technical foul with 27 seconds in the game is unacceptable. That's who Rudy is, but you gotta be smart. He made a visual that was automatic. He was obviously frustrated. Both teams were, but we have to be smarter." My reaction, this is what Rudy Gobert admitted after the game. He said, and I quote, "My reaction, which I think was the true, but it wasn't the time to react that way. It cost my team the game. It was an immature reaction. It's not just one call. Everyone makes mistakes. But when it's over and over and over again, of course it's frustrating." And you know what, Rudy Gobert? You should have took some accountability classes, bro. You should have took some accountability classes, because right now, Minnesota is not going to go anywhere. I know they're one of the top teams in the West. I know they have the number one defense in the NBA, because in an offense mostly type of league, you need a top defense. And thankfully, Minnesota has the top defense. But my God, showing that gesture like that, if you're Rudy Gobert, that could potentially cost Minnesota the playoffs. I'm not going to lie to you. That could potentially cost Minnesota not just this game, but deep into the playoffs. As I mentioned before, Karl Anthony Towns is out for a month to have knee surgery on his torn meniscus. Mitchell missed his third game with a left knee bruise. Cleveland's leading scorer and all-star received a platelet-rich plasma injection earlier this week and will be reevaluated on Saturday. As of this recording, today is Saturday, so we're going to see how it's going to play out. JB Bickerstaff said he's progressed, he's doing stuff on the floor, it just becomes the next workout and the next workout and how he feels, and then continuing to ramp up from there. There is a possibility that Donovan Mitchell could be back sooner than we think. If we get him back tomorrow against Brooklyn in Cleveland, that would be monster for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But in any event, this was a solid win for Cleveland against the top defense in the NBA, and what do you know? Another top seed goes down in the land. 43% for the field for Cleveland, 41% for Minnesota. The free throws percentage, 81% for Minnesota, 72% for Cleveland. Three-point percentage, 32% from three for Cleveland, 26% from deep for Minnesota. The rebounds were 46-45 in favor of Cleveland. The assist numbers, 27-25 Cavs, 7-5 were the steals in favor of the Cavs. The blocks were 8-5 in favor of the Cavs. The points in the paint, 48-44 in favor of Cleveland. Fast break points, 10-6 in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. For the Timberwolves, Naz Reid stepped up big off the bench. He led the Minnesota Timberwolves in scoring with 34 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, shooting 7-11 from 3 and 10 of 18 for the field. Big game for Naz Reid. Anthony Edwards was held in check. 19 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, a steal and a block, but 7-27 for the field. That is absolutely disgusting. Rudy Gobert, 7 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks before the technical foul. I mean, come on, bro. Rudy Gobert, you got to be more mature than that. You got to be smarter than that. I agree with your acting head coach tonight. You needed to be smarter. For Cleveland, Darius, Garland, and Jarret Allen combined for 67 points as DG finished with 34 with 4 rebounds, 8 assists, shooting 13-26 for the field. Jarret Allen, 33 points, 18 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, plus 21 on the plus minus. George Niang had a game high plus 26 with 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 4 of 7 from distance. 6 of 10 from the field. He was absolutely cooking for Cleveland. And LeVert off the bench doing what he does. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and also a block while shooting 5 of 15 from the field. Monster win for Cleveland against another number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They have a whole lot of confidence going into Sunday's game against Brooklyn inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. That's going to do it for today's edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United. You can find this show on Amazon Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all that good stuff, and on YouTube. If you are watching this on YouTube, hit the like button on this video, hit subscribe to my YouTube channel, NJHawk40, and hit that notification bell. Turn on your notifications, give the show a follow, and rate Let 'Em Know Kings United with a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I'm your host, Garland Weisberg, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, and I'm going to see you right back here for another edition of Let 'Em Know Kings United. I will likely be doing a live Raw reaction episode later today after the Bulls and Clippers, so stand by for that one.